Alright guys, so I'm about to start doing some more work on my Ninja here. Going to be putting some frame sliders on it this morning. And what you need to do to install them is basically take both your fairings off. This video is going to be segmented, so if you want the timestamps on install or removing the fairings or whatever you want, that's going to be in the description bar down below. Frame sliders that I'm putting on, these T-Rex racing ones. There's all sorts of different brand names that you can go with, different kinds. I like the way these look, and I also liked the price. So now what we can do is go ahead and start removing our Allen keyed bolts. Really easy. You just use the proper ones. There's one here. There's one up here. There's one down here. And there's one right here. And there might be a couple more. I'll update you guys if there are. But after we remove all these, we'll go ahead and move on to the bolts, because this whole part here comes off. Now once you got that top bolt removed, it's pretty simple. So that's been accomplished. You don't have to remove this part all the way, but you just need to remove it so that you can get access to this bolt right here. And the proper size socket is a 10 mil, so just go ahead and remove it. And I actually missed another bolt right here, so I'm going to have to get at that one. But it's not all that hard now that I removed this guy. Now the rivets you're going to need to remove is the one right there, the one right there in the back underneath the radiator, the one that's up here, and then this one. And of course the ones on the other side. So I'll go ahead and do those too, just to knock them out of the way. But you guys will just see me do these. Now I've found that one of the easier ways to remove these, I don't know if it's the right way, is to go ahead and get something long that can fit through this hole and go ahead and push the head in through. It won't go all the way through, but basically once you have it through enough, then you can get something that, well, whatever work would get under the head, and just kind of pull it out like that, and the whole thing will come out. And hopefully with the right tool, it can come out a little bit easier. As you guys can see, I already broke this one. Broke that a while ago. I've had this set now for a few years. Got it from Harbor Freight. So now that those are out, we can go ahead and pull the fairing off. So when you do pull your fairing off, you have to remember you do have a turn signal that's going to come off with it. This is all one piece. This black piece that's connected to it, it's going to come off with the white piece. It's all, as you can see, it's one piece, and there is a little tab up in here, much like this one here, that it just clips into. So you kind of want to pull these off relatively gingerly. So with this piece disconnected, just comes right off, and then to suffice with this, all you got to do is just basically unhook it. Might have to put the camera down for this, but just unhook your turn signal, and then nothing else should be connected to this thing. So now this is unhooked completely. Let's go ahead and remove our fairing. That's how you remove the fairing, really not all that difficult. So I'm just going to go ahead and set it aside over here, kind of out of the way. And I'll do the same with the other side. This is kind of a rough mock-up on how it's supposed to go on. You're going to want to put the bracket with the longer doubler here, which is basically going to go up against the motor right here. So essentially what you're going to remove is that bolt, and it's going to go in like so. This black aluminum bar is going to go on the top of the motor. So that's just a mock-up. I'm going to have to, dismantle that to get this in properly. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and remove this long bolt and this short one up here. This one's going to be kind of a pain. Honestly, it's probably best to have a buddy or somebody else, helping you with this, because it's really not exactly the easiest area to get into. But I'm going to try and do it by myself here first, and hopefully it'll work out. But I'm going to go ahead, as I said, remove this one, and I'm also going to remove the same one on the opposite side. And being that I'm working by myself, this is how I went ahead and removed this on this side. I stuck this wrench here, held it with my left hand. As you guys saw, I had the ratchet on the other side. I'm now sitting on the bike, and I just loosened it with this one, cracked it open. So now it should come off by hand. And so just pull it out from the other side. I tapped it a couple times with the hammer. So I'm just going to set it down here. The other bushing here, doubler, whatever you want to call it, it's right here on the other side. I'm just going to kind of leave everything together. So now I'm going to go ahead and try and crack this out. It's not going to be the easiest thing, that's for sure. So let's get started. So I had to employ an age-old technique on how to get a not stuck bolt, but very tight bolt undone. And it's pretty easy. This thing didn't even move at all, so realistically I could have not even used this and been fine. But I will need to use that when I go back on. So now it rotates freely. I'm going to go ahead and undo the nut here on the other side. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do the other side. I've got all the hardware just chilling down here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and group up the hardware for the fairing, put it in my little oil filter box and get it out of the way. So now the right side's out too. You got the bolt and nut right there. You are going to have to reuse the nuts that you removed. So now on to step 2. And I'll show you guys on this side. It basically goes together like this, and 2 of those spacers go right in between the 2. One there and one there. And when you go ahead and install these, because you're not going to be able to get back there and tighten up the 2 screws, they'll look exactly like these and have heads like that if you don't put this on first before you throw everything on. Now I've got this one already retained. I do need to tighten it some more, and the nut is already on it. And this bottom one here is just sitting in there loosely, but there is a good amount of tension on it just because of the way this thing is designed. I'm going to go ahead and connect up the other side and kind of put everything in loosely. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and put the aluminum bar in. The aluminum bar goes through this hole. So now we're on the right side of the motor. I'm going to go ahead and, before I put that one on, put the spacer on here, which goes on the outside of that top bolt. Stick that one there. Stick the short one here. Mount this one up. It's kind of loosely again. And then we're going to have to go ahead and stick that bolt through. So what I'm going to end up doing is kind of putting in part of the way, putting the spacer in on the other side, throwing it all the way through, and then raising it up here and putting it all the way through the other side. So now that is completed, I'm going to go ahead, throw the washer and the lock nut on this side. I'm just going to kind of thread it on and start it by hand. Now on this side I'm going to have to go ahead and do the same thing, start the nut on the other side with the wrench, and we'll go from there. Now as you guys saw the other side, it's not exactly a whole bunch of room to do what I did on the other side, but there was just enough because of this side not having the bracket here yet that I was able to get in and get the nut on. So in order to rectify this, here's a nice little trick you can do. I've got the nut in place and I've got some masking tape wrapped around it. That's because when I go in through up here, so you guys can see the wrench right here, you basically have to kind of fish this thing back in and really by feel and, you know, just your best guess, get the thing on the end of the bolt. Now this isn't all that hard because you can see it if you look the right way. So now this top part's basically nice and cinched down. I'm going to go ahead and finish off with tightening this part up here when I get on top of the bike and go ahead and tighten it the same way that I loosened it. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and throw the aluminum bar in. And I got this side in. Really wasn't all that difficult. Just I put the bar in first, put it down so it lined up with the hole, threaded the bolt through. And it wasn't even on this side, so I kind of had to pull it up just a little bit. So now I'm just going to thread this through by hand, kind of start it. And I'm going to go ahead and get the Allen key. Now the aluminum bar is in place. So now I can go ahead and finish tightening off the bottom stainless steel bar. And to do that, I will be sitting on the bike and tightening it the exact same way that I took it off. So now I've got both ends on, both brackets. Everything's all locked in and tight. That's all the pieces that you need to install. All the proper spacers are on it. Remember, the long spacer goes on the top, the short one goes on the bottom. And don't forget this little doubler that goes in between the two, in between the frame and the spacer. And now all I got to do is just go ahead and put the fairings back on. They go back on the same way they came off. Well, so as you guys can see now, everything is put on and in place. I only had to replace a few of those nylon rivets. I will make another note. As you can see, there's a little dimple in between the part that the puck mounts onto. That's to make this suffice to go through it. So now the last step is to go ahead and install the puck. In order to do that, I have a screw here. It goes in the bottom, as you can see right here. And I'm going to put a little bit of thread locker on it. Not really too much. You don't need much. Once you get it in there and start rotating it around, it pretty well seats itself. Definitely like it'll support the bike if I ever drop it. So basically that's what these things are for. Most of the time when you drop a bike, you're either going to be going really slow or you're going to be getting on it. So that's what they're made for. And so here's the finished product. This side, just because of the way it's, I don't know, designed, it's kind of cutting into my fairing just a little bit, but as long as it's doing its job, that's all right, I guess. But they feel pretty solid. These pucks are like ABS plastic or something, and they're designed to be replaceable in case you do drop it and mess them up. I don't know how much they cost offhand, but you can find the prices online. So, as I said, it's kind of fun trying to figure this thing out when you first look at it, because the instructions that they include with it are not all that great. But if you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them. And you all stay classy.